Welcome back to Prof E Plays. I'm Prof E, and what I thought I would do here today was do some Shadowdark. Now, Shadowdark did, after all, just win, I believe it was 4 Ennies this year at Gen Con. I've actually never been to Gen Con. I've been to Origin several times because it's somewhat closer to me. Uh, but but yeah, 4 Ennies. That's pretty good. But so I thought it might be kind of fun to try out Shadowdark a little bit. I'm working off of the free quick start rules that you can get through Drive Through RPG, and also I will be using Solo Dark as well, which Kelsey Dionne, the designer of Shadowdark, authored herself and put up on her website, the Arcane Library. Right, so I will try to remember to include links to all of those things for you so that you can have access to those if you wish. So this session, all I really want to do is make a couple characters. So I'm going to make 2 characters. The recommendation in Solo Dark is that you should run with somewhere between 2 and 4 characters if you're going to play solo. The idea being that if you do more than that, then it becomes difficult, right, to actually manage everything. Right, so I'm going to keep it to 2 because I normally am somebody I like to run like a true solo character a lot of the time. Though I haven't been doing that recently, actually, because, playing BCC, you definitely need a group there because you die so easily. And I suspect the same is going to be true as I play Shadowdark. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take here, I printed off from the free PDF for the quick start, I printed off some of the sheets that I thought would be most useful. Things like, basic rules, that kind of stuff. Things like difficulty numbers and so on. And I also printed off a couple character sheets, but I will be referring right to the PDF itself, which I mean doesn't really make much difference to you, except that I'm going to be looking at the camera a lot. I guess that's it. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull out the. She has everything broken down into 2 guides. So one is the player guide, which is about 68 pages, and that includes like covers and that kind of thing for the quick start. And then she also has a Game Master Guide, which is a similar length. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and go through character creation here. Character creation is real nice. It's super simple, right? So let's go ahead and kind of work our way through it. Right, so the first thing you do is you have a background, which you roll randomly on a table that she provides. Right, so it's a D20 table. So my first character, I'm just going to do one character at a time. As my first character is going to be someone with the background of, I got 19. 19 is a noble, right? So this person's background is that they were a noble. All right, cool. Next thing I want to do, I'm going to roll up stats. Stats here, you roll 3d6 and just do it right down the line. And then I will use my stats to determine what kind of class I want to have, and also what my ancestry is going to be. I'll go ahead and roll this out, right? So first would be strength, strength with a 10. Next, dex. Dex is also a 10, so there's nothing great, nothing terrible yet. How about Constitution? Constitution is pretty good. Constitution's a 13. Now, there is an optional rule here that if none of your stats are 14 or more, then you get to re-roll the whole set. See, that's a 15. So, okay, I do not get to re-roll the whole set. My intelligence is I wrote down 14. I wrote down, it should be 15. Okay, wisdom. Wisdom is a 12. And then finally, okay. Charisma is a 6. Right, so putting in my stats, my modifiers, strength is a 10, which means I have a 0 modifier on that. Same for dex. Constitution, I get a +1 on that. Intelligence, I get a +2. Wisdom, I get a +1. And charisma, I get a -2. All right, so that is that. Next would be ancestry. Now, as I'm thinking about ancestry, I do want to also think about the class that I'm thinking about right now. Right, so The ancestry, these are effectively your species, so you have a few options. It's just six of them, at least in the quick start rules. That is dwarf, elf, goblin, halfling, half orc, and human. Now I'm thinking this person is going to be a wizard because high intelligence, this definitely would tend toward wizardiness. So if I wanted to really up that, then I may want to play something like an elf. An elf can get a +1 bonus because the elf has the choice of either +1 bonus to attack rolls with ranged weapons or a +1 bonus to spell casting checks. Right, so that might be something that I'd want to think about doing. Right. Alternatively, a dwarf, interestingly, helps to offset some of the weaknesses in that wizards are traditionally easy to kill, which is good that way, right? Whereas a dwarf gets some nice benefits to HP. So that might be playing in a small party. It's more important not to have terrible weaknesses than it is to have kind of these min-maxed strengths. So something like that might possibly be worthwhile. Not much reason to a half orc because it's a +1 to attack and damage rolls. That's that with melee weapons, which we should try to avoid melee if possible. And assuming that we're a wizard. Ambitious is what you get as a human, so you just get an additional talent roll, which that is something that is useful but tends to intensify the min-maxing. So I don't really want that. Not being surprised, that's perhaps useful. Stealthy, being able to be invisible for 3 rounds once a day. That's the halfling ability. That's pretty good, actually. Um, hmm. So I'm torn between dwarf and elf. So I'm just gonna roll. If it's 1 to 3, it's gonna be a dwarf. Got a 6, so it's elf. All right. So ancestry is elf. Here we go. As an elf, a couple things I get. I get Farsight, so I'm going to make a note of that. So Farsight is the ancestry feature, which is going to be a +1 to spell checks. I could either do that or for ranged weapons, but you can't use ranged weapons as a spellcaster. With the except, I guess you can throw daggers, so I guess you can do thrown weapons that way. Right, so next thing would be class. The class that I'm going to choose, as I mentioned, is going to be a wizard. All right. We've got wizard written down. Things that a wizard gets, right? So one, as a wizard, your weapon proficiencies are daggers and staves or staff. Right? Hit points are 1d4 per level. So I'm going to pull out a d4. Just go ahead and roll those hit points. Now you do add your Constitution modifier, which means a +1. Pardon me. Right, so I'm going to roll this d4. Came through as a 3. 3 + 1 gives me 4 hit points. So that could not have gone much better. Then languages. The languages I get as an elf. Elves in themselves get a few languages. So I got common. So make notes of these. Common, Elvish, and Sylvan. Then I also, by virtue of being a wizard, you get additional languages, 2 more common languages plus 2 rare languages. So there are lots of languages here. So common, Sylvan is what's spoken by centaurs, dryads, and fairies. I kind of think it would be good. Like I feel like Dwarvish would be another fairly common language. Maybe I should also throw in here something like Goblin, right? So that then I could communicate with perhaps some of the foes. And then I also get 2 rare languages. There are 4 rare languages available to me in the quick start. Celestial, which is spoken by angels, Diabolic by demons, Draconic by dragons, and Primordial by elementals and elder things. I think I'm going to go with Draconic. I like the idea of being able to speak to dragons and Diabolic. I can speak to dragons and demons. There we go. Also, for the wizard, there are rules for learning spells, so I'm not really going to worry about that right now. Right, so if you find a spell scroll, you can actually learn the spell there, and it doesn't count against your known spells. Now, in terms of known spells, as a first level wizard, I do get 3 tier 1 spells from the wizard spell list. So if I flip to the wizard spell list here, it's going to take a little bit for me to get to the right page. There we go. So the wizard tier 1 wizard spells. I have alarm. What alarm does, alarm allows me to put a spell on an object, and then anybody that interacts with that object other than who I have decided is allowed to interact with that object, it sets off alarm bells in my head. Last second would be Burning Hands. Burning Hands is an attack that basically makes a ring of fire around you. Charm Person, fairly obvious what that would do. Detect Magic, also fairly obvious. Feather Fall, right? So you don't take fall damage if that spell works. Floating Disc allows you to carry more stuff. Hold Portal allows you to hold a portal closed to prevent things from coming through, though it's not impenetrable. Light, fairly obvious what that would do. Mage Armor. I think that I want that one actually. Magic Missiles, basic attack spell. Protection from Evil. That one, it's obviously a protection spell. And then Sleep puts creatures to sleep. But I'm thinking here in terms of spells. I'm just going to note here that I'm doing spells. I think that I want to do. I think it makes sense to me to have Mage Armor. Mage Armor is a good defensive spell, and it's going to help me deal with the fact that otherwise my AC is going to be 10. So I'm going to write down my AC of 10. What Mage Armor does, as long as the spell actually works, because when you do spell casting, uh, you have the possibility of failure. Right? So it's roll to cast. It's not like a D&D spell slots or something like that. So you don't have any limitations on the number of times you can cast your spells, but the spells are not reliable. Okay, which actually I like that better than spell slots. Okay. Then I'm also going to do Magic Missile. I like having a nice basic attack spell here that also allows me to have a ranged attack. Where, like, I think that like having a dagger and a staff that's nice, but they're not really good, reliable ranged weapons. Like you throw the dagger, you have one shot, and you're done. And then I want some kind of utility spell. So one thing that Mike Shea from over at Sly Flourish suggested is when you're picking spells, think about things that will help your friends. So, what here is something that is not just helpful to the wizard himself, but rather also could be helpful to the rest of the group? So, things that I'm thinking about here, the most obvious to me would be something like Charm Person. Right, so, Charm Person, I'm going to make a note of that. Here we go. Right, so Charm Person, I think, is a good third spell. All right. So at this point, when I look at my sheet, this is where we are. I have all of my stats filled in. I have my HP of 4, my AC of 10. That's assuming no armor, which I can't actually wear armor. My ancestry is elf, class is wizard, my background is noble. Other things that I still need to do. One, as a wizard, you also, in first level, get to roll on the talent table. Right, so what the talent table is, it's a 2d6 table which gives you some kind of ability. So let's go ahead and just roll these 2d6 and see what they are. So now often it's just like a bonus to a stat or something like that. Like so I got a 10. And so the 10 is I get to learn one additional wizard spell of any tier that I know. So I get one more wizard spell. Okay, that's cool. All right, so let's see. So spells. So what else would be good? Huh. I kind of like the idea of burning hands actually, because that's kind of an area spell. And the range on that one is close. So that way, if I happen to end up getting surrounded, I can attack everybody who's surrounding me at once, that's kind of convenient. So I got that. Cool. All right. Next thing I need to do, I'm just checking my list here. All right, so I did background, I did stats, I did ancestry, I did class, including the talent roll. I got my hit points here. I need a title, although the title is going to be connected with my choice of alignment. All right, so alignment. So your alignment, you only have 3 choices. It's chaotic, lawful, and neutral. Um, So this person, he's an elf, is one thing, and also from a noble background. I'm leaning toward lawful. So I'm thinking the alignment here, I'm just gonna make him lawful. I could, of course, have randomized that if I wished. And then he's lawful. I'm gonna give him. He doesn't actually have to have a deity. Yes, I'm not going to. Right. He is lawfully aligned, which means then his title as a wizard. If you are a wizard that is lawful in first level, you are called an apprentice. So just make a note here. So that is what his reputation is effectively going to be. Cool. Now it's down to gear. So I get to roll 2d6 multiplied by 5. That's how many gold I have. Right, so I get 30 gold to spend on gear. And there's a number of things that I could possibly get. One thing that I like uh, is that Kelsey has designed a crawling kit, which uses 7 of my gear slots. I have a total of 10 slots available. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and just get that first. It's only 7 gold points, so I get flint and steel. Very important because one of the things about Shadowdark, you can probably tell from the name, Shadow Dark, is that light is really important. One of the things that I enjoy about this is that in I guess the normal social play of this game, your torch lasts an hour of real time. So like you actually set timer, and so like if you spend a bunch of time like arguing or just messing around or whatever at the table, you're losing light time, which is awesome to me. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't quite work the same for solo. Um, for whatever reason, because in Solo Dark it's suggested that you should use 10 rounds instead. I suspect because we naturally tend to move a little bit faster, because we don't have to negotiate with other players as much. Right, so in this crawling kit, which I mentioned before, it comes with flint and steel, 2 torches, 3 rations, 10 iron spikes, a grappling hook, and a rope. So finishing writing this down, grappling hook and a rope. All right, I then have 3 more slots. So looking at this, um, to me, I think it makes sense for me because I could either get a dagger or a staff. I think I'm gonna go with a staff. Right, so I'm down to what is 23, so it's gonna be 22 gold points, coins then, and 5 silver pieces because a staff is just 5 silver pieces. So I'm gonna go ahead and with the staff. The staff is a two-handed weapon, and it does 1d4 damage. So I'm gonna go ahead and here just okay. When I roll it, it's gonna be based on strength, which is a +0 for me, and then I do 1d4 damage with it. So I'm just noting that here. And then I still have 2 empty spell slots, which will, not spell slots, empty gear slots, which will be very important when I bring back stuff. Okay. Oh, I just realized I wrote that the wrong place. Okay. The title I wrote next to class, but there's actually a slot for the title on character sheet. Cool. Right, and then I could also write my attack signals. So that would be that. Um, it's very, very straightforward. That didn't take very long at all, actually. It's, with including my chatter, that was under 15 minutes. Right, so let's go ahead. Oh, he doesn't have a name yet. I guess characters should have a name. Well, I'm awful with names, so I'm just going to roll. She gives us a character name table. Number 6, this is Veros. Veros the elf. All right, cool. The next one. Okay. So Varos's companion, who's going to be going along with him, let's go ahead and go through. I'm actually going to do some randomization here, right? So there is the option, which is in the last page of the player's guide PDF, is just like randomizing basically everything. And so I think I might actually want to do that. So first, the background is random anyway, right? So the background is this person was a sailor. Now, what backgrounds are used for is that if you are doing something that is relevant to your background, you would tend to get advantage on those rolls. Okay. Then stats are naturally also random, so let's go ahead and roll for those. Now, if stats lead toward an obvious class, then I will go ahead and do that. Oh my goodness. Okay, there's 15. 15 strength to start with. That's pretty good. So it's a +2 for strength. Then you got 12 for dex, so it's a +1 on dex. Constitution is a 10, which is a +0. That's okay. Intelligence. Intelligence is a 14. So that's a fairly strong character. Wisdom is an 8, which is going to be at a -1. And then charisma is 10, which is at a 0. Okay. Given the high strength, it makes sense to me this person should be a fighter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write down the fighter stuff. Right, so class fighter as level 1. Let's see, can use any weapons, can use any armor or shield. Hit points is a D8 plus the Constitution modifier. So let me pull out my D8 here. Six. All right, so it's 6 plus Constitution modifier, which I don't have one. So it's 6. AC without any kind of armor would be 11, except that I am going to get leather armor. That is something that random characters get. Another one of the traits of a fighter is that a fighter gets to be a hauler. A hauler means they get to add their Constitution modifier if they have +1 to their number of gear slots. He has 15 gear slots anyway, and a 0 Constitution modifier. But oh well. Another thing he gets is weapon mastery. That is, I get to choose one type of weapon, such as something like a longsword, and get a +1 to attack and damage with that weapon type. So I'm just going to write here weapon mastery, and then I'll decide in a minute what I want that to be. Right, so weapon mastery and something. And then finally you get grit, where you get to choose either strength or dexterity, and then you have advantage on any kinds of checks where you're trying to overcome an opposing force with that. Right, so I mean, I'm gonna make grit about dex, because his strength is already fairly strong, so I don't really feel I need to do much with that. Now fighter talent, so I'm just gonna go ahead and roll on this one. That's 6. 6 is a +1 to melee and ranged attacks. Okay, cool. All right, then next thing I want to do. Okay, so I did actually choose my class here, but there are other things that still need to be determined. All right, so one would be ancestry. So ancestry, the random table suggests just rolling a d12, and then basically you have a third chance of being a human, a 1/6, yeah, 1/6 chance of elf, 1/6 of dwarf, 1/6 of halfling, and then a 1/12 chance of half orc, 1/12 chance of goblin. Rolling, it's a 6. A 6 is an elf. Okay, so they're both elves, which might explain maybe how they know each other or something like that. So they're both elves. This one's a fighter as well. All right, let's go ahead and so we got class alignment. We need to roll for alignment. Okay, so the alignment is going to be 3, another lawful. Okay. All right. Now, in terms of gear, when you're making a character more randomly, as I am here, uh, instead of rolling for some amount of gold, what you do instead is just you pick a weapon of whatever my choice is. I'm going to do that in a minute. You get leather armor. I'm going to write that down. So leather armor. You obviously get a backpack to put everything in, and then you roll a d6, and then that determines how many items you get. Right, so leather armor, I'll have to look up exactly what that does here in a minute. But in terms of gear, I get to roll 5 times, so I get 5 gears. One thing I got was a torch. That's good. Another thing we got was a 9 was flint and steel. Well, that's good. It's always good to be able to actually light this torch. It's two. Three is actually three. That's a pole, which is nice for traps, that kind of thing. Then number one, again, another torch. And then finally, number nine, more flint and steel. I guess in case I lose the one. All right, well, and that's the way it is. Okay. Then weapon of my choice. And whatever the weapon is that I choose is naturally the weapon that I'm going to want to have be like my specialty. Right? So weapon options, I can use any weapon I like. Now, I don't have a shield, so I'm going to be inclined toward things that might possibly use two hands. So things like a great sword. Actually, yeah, a great sword is pretty cool. And it takes up two slots, but he has lots of slots. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that down. He has a great sword. Great sword will be at a +3. It will do 1d12 damage. That's awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get this guy a name and a title. First title, he's a fighter that is lawful, so that would make him a squire. Oh, I also forgot about my armor for a second. So leather armor gives you, it's 11 plus your dex modifier, so it's just like 1 point better than just wearing no armor at all. Right, so 11 plus 1, so AC of 12. So he's not going to be that hard to hit. Okay. But, a little bit harder than his wizard friend who's at 10. All right, except for when he gets the mage armor working, right? Okay. Next up then, what else was it? Looking for, I think that, oh, name, name. Name might be a useful thing. All right, so where's the name list? There's the name list. All right, so we'll roll a 20 on this. 3. Yeah, so this one is Serial. Serial being the companion of Veros, who will be going on an adventure together next time I pull this out. So, yes, that is that. I think it's a fairly straightforward process. What the second character we made in less than 10 minutes. Yeah, I think like if you're not having to choose what your like two things I found speed this up. One, making a fighter is way faster than making any kind of spellcaster. This is true, I think, in every single system. I remember like the first time I made a fighter in D&D was not that long ago. That's like this is it. Like, I don't have to like choose from a list of 30 spells. Amazing, right? All right, so that is one thing that does speed things up. Another would be throwing in kind of the random stuff. Now, the downside to that is when you make the character randomly, you don't have those gold pieces, right? So between the two of them, Serial is relatively poor, where Veros is relatively wealthy in terms of carrying stuff, or carrying coin, anyway. All right, so I think that is that. And then next time we're going to figure out what kind of adventure these folks are going on. In the meantime, Prof E, signing off.